Hi, I'm Kim Surgent. Hello to everybody. So welcome to the fourth component of today's Digital Design Lab webinar. So we are going to go into digital learning experiences. I've got to slow down. I did not have enough caffeine today. I'm going to be working with my buddy, Carol Mullins. I'm going to let her say hello.
Hello, everyone. They've heard me already today a couple of times.
Absolutely. So I wanted to give you this information right off the bat so that you guys would have that if you wanted to take a screenshot to contact us or anything. As part of digital learning experiences, and you can see these four components, we basically have our presentation today divided up into these four. We're going to be looking, the four components within that, and you can see this on the KDE website, is remote learning design. So that's where we really are going to talk to our teachers today and start thinking about what that experience is going to be like for our students. We have online virtual learning, student data privacy, which is going to be so important within all of this, and of course, professional learning. So our first segment today, we're going to have some panelists joining in with us, and that is Ben Nader with KDE, Jeff, let's see if I said this correctly, Cebulski, and Courtney Rosted. So if you guys would go ahead and come on there, we're going to be looking at some questions with them, but to really inform our thinking as we transition from crisis teaching to online remote teaching. So we're going to throw these questions out to you guys, and one of those we can actually toss out a little bit today. So what we're going to first look at is the first question, and that is, how do we transition from crisis teaching to remote teaching? So Ben, if you could start us with that conversation, that would be wonderful.
Absolutely. Hey, I'm just excited to be here today. Kim, I'm just going to take a second to kind of introduce myself. I think we'll maybe all do that as we kind of roll through. So just want to say, appreciate being here. I know I've worked with a lot of the Quebec region before. I love working with our Quebec folks, and so excited we can be here today. A little bit about my experience. So I'll be coming at what we're talking about today from multiple angles: teacher slash CIO, district administrator at one point, middle school assistant principal, athletic director, elementary principal. And so now I don't know what the date is. The 4th. Hey, today I started my 4th year with KDE today. So it's a good day. So I love what we do. I've learned a lot from our team and learned a lot from our districts as we've been able to work together. And so really excited about this design because we get to kind of look at some big areas. And like I say, we won't necessarily have every answer today, but that's what I love about KVEC's design is this is going to be ongoing work that you can actually use the district's expertise and experiences and how we're failing forward to build on that. And so that all districts can really benefit from the experiences. And so, looking at the first question, how do we transition from crisis teaching to remote teaching? I think, part of transitioning is to understand where we're at and where we've been. And so, and I think in crisis, kind of in a crisis mode or crisis teaching, I think folks tend to fall back to, in a crisis time, they tend to fall back to shelter, things that are comfortable, things that are known, right? You can think back to personal, crisis in your life, or even just looking at, from the school perspective. As a former school leader, and I know Nick, worked with Nick a little bit, and he's been nice enough. Jennifer was right. He will share anytime, anywhere about some of the awesome things that they're doing. So he's been able to do that in a couple of places for us. But, being able to kind of understand that it's likely that teachers started to fall back to some things that were comfortable. Now, does that mean that was bad? No, that's going to be a natural reaction. So I think as a school leader, being able to recognize that and then to be able to help folks assess where we are now. And Laura said it even in the last session, honestly, what we do starting end of August, or some of you maybe even sooner, moving forward should not look like what it did, because we've had a chance to assess. We're taking great chances to learn right now, to be able to move into a more comfortable spot for remote teaching. and learning, I think, coming up. So I think, from my perspective, moving from crisis to remote is recognizing where we've been, building leaders and teams and districts, being able to help meet folks where they are. And so that way we can, meet the needs, get folks, comfortable and ready to move into this next phase, and with a mindset that, hey, we're going to mess this up some. And so, but we have some support structures to help you through this, right? And so, Jeff or Courtney, I'll kick it to one of you guys to kind of fill in some gaps and cracks there.
Yeah, Ben, I mean, absolutely. I'll pitch in here just a little bit. I mean, everything you said is 100% on point, spot on. I think one of the benefits we have as we make this transition from that crisis mode in March to now is, it's a very fluid situation right now with districts coming and adjusting schedules and start dates. And so now that opportunity exists in a lot of spots for us to pause, knowing that maybe our school start dates have been pushed back even a few weeks in a couple of situations, that we could, take advantage of that time now to really get into teachers communicating with parents, with students, with other teachers, to share resources, to figure out what those next steps are. So that crisis mode was, I mean, from a parent perspective of public school kids, it was awesome to see that amazing, like, holy cow, look at this jumping in and everybody is doing such a great job. And then now I feel like we're in a great situation where folks have, no one's gone to sleep over this time. We know that all of our teachers and our educators have been thinking the whole time, what's the fall going to look like? How am I going to do this? What happens if we come back in just a virtual situation? How am I going to do a hybrid model? So I have so much faith in the notion that all of our professional educators have been exercising their minds and getting ready for the fall. So, I think that transition to what's going to happen here in the fall, we're going to be ready for it. But what you said was key, though, that it is going to be a rolling design model that is going to be adjusted over time, and that failing forward is okay. I think that's going to be key. And like we mentioned when Jeff spoke in the beginning this morning, we have a system in place that's unrivaled across the country. So the 25 plus years of work that have gotten to get education technology to where it is in Kentucky now is the reason why folks are going to be coming back with the history books to look at what Kentucky did to handle the COVID-19 crisis. Courtney?
I mean, all day long, I think a theme has been flexibility. And as educators, sometimes that's hard because we've always been given like blueprints, and I think right now, going from that crisis to where we are, we're learning in every role. Like our teachers are leaders. Our teachers this summer, I mean, if this had to happen at the end of the year to have this summertime, and I think teachers are stepping up and they know that they're just as much a leader and they're taking control and they're becoming flexible in their teaching. They're trying new things. I just think being understanding of that flexibility in all capacities is something that we're learning to do, and it's something we have to keep in our, in the back of our minds, because we're going to come out better, and we already have. We're embracing things that we've talked about for a while, and now we're learning and we're embracing them. I was really excited when you all organized this panel to have teachers share what they are doing and what they're planning. And I know some of them, and they are awesome. And that's what we're going to see. And I think that type of energy and attitude that we're going to get past this will lead us into the remote teaching. It takes us from that crisis, and it's being flexible, with our kids too.
Absolutely. And I think the big thing for me, two verbs, reflecting and acknowledging, are the two big things I think about. I think reflecting, being able to look back and acknowledging what worked and what did not work. And if it didn't work, forgive ourselves and let it go, and move on into, which leads us really to our next question. You guys dealt with this in the last session. So we really feel like we don't really need a really long discussion here, because you talked about that. But one discussion that we wanted to talk, that we wanted to bring forward that goes along with the DLCs a little bit is, how do we support teachers in this instructional shift? Because we had a great discussion about that the other day. So I would rather throw this question than the other question, because you've talked about DLCs and their role. But I think that because, we have 2 administrators and a teacher on this part of the panel right now. So we would love for you to talk about, how do you build those scaffolds and supports to support our teachers? Because this is an instructional shift. This stuff is not leaving. It's not going to go away. I mean, what has happened now, there's aspects of this that will stay with us forever. So how do we support teachers in that shift?
Absolutely. So such a big, question here is, how do we support those teachers? And I think, one of our big things to push, we have a lot of administrators and we have principals and we have superintendents on the call today, to keep in mind that we have to, from a leadership level, build in this notion that innovation is okay. And we're going to find some things that we're going to go down this road and realize maybe we should have went the other branch, and that's okay. And that at this time, we're going to be really I'm not saying this is experimental, but we have to give that freedom to our educators to try different things and to let them know from the get-go, as we're planning what the fall is going to be, what my classroom is going to look like, that it does not have to be what I remember it being in March. It doesn't have to be what I've done for 10 or 15 years. That this is now a time for me to completely think outside the box, be a little scared, be a little nervous, but know that I have a community of educators to lean on. That's why things like what we're doing today and this ongoing support from KVAC is going to be so vital for folks, because we're going into a lot of folks. This is really uncharted territory for them. For a section of folks, they're looking at this and thinking, man, I got some great tools I can't wait to share and try out. And then there's a whole other subsection of teachers who we know are really nervous right now and trying to figure out what is next. And it's tough. We know as educators, it's tough, especially if you find yourself in a situation where you might feel like the students know more about the technology we're using than I do. And we have to help get them to a point where that's okay. And we can recognize that, and we can lean on those students, and we can lean on those supports and resources to help us, project ourselves to that next level where it's going to be uncomfortable. It's going to be okay that it's uncomfortable. And that from our perspective is such a big support that we can provide for teachers. But I will say, not to dominate the conversation, but to be a little nerdy is, I have always kind of been really interested in this sort of concept of what's called positive deviance. And that's the nerdy part. But the idea of positive deviance is that when there's a problem and we're looking for solutions, that often getting together a panel of experts isn't as effective as just looking at the folks that are actually at the ground level and how they are solving the problems. So from us, part of that support that we're going to be able to provide for teachers is just that communication piece amongst professionals, that professional learning network where we can feel safe to share and talk about things that work, things that didn't work, why they worked, why they didn't work. Those are going to be key as we are rolling forward. And Ben, I feel like I've talked for a lot there. I'm going to turn the mic over to you for a moment if you have something to share.
If you don't want someone to talk a lot, you know better than to turn the mic over to me. So Courtney, make sure you butt in when it's time, okay? But hopefully you can see our screen share here. If Dr. Park is actually tuned back in, and he was able to drop the shortened URL for the site that we're our workshop, what we call workshopy site that we've been working with for these design labs. And it's a great place that we've been able to kind of curate some resources that what I think is awesome is KVAC is then able to take things that are pertinent from this, but also things that are created from the district and even other things that they're finding to be of resource for their districts. And I think that's a fantastic thing. And Jeff, just wanted to follow up a little bit on what you're saying. I think, to manage the shift, I think we kind of need to understand what the shift is. And one of the things that we were able to kind of lay out in the digital learning experiences portion of this is that, and I kind of highlighted it here, I may zoom in a little bit, but there's, and Dr. Park said it today, you know, teaching does not always equal learning, right? And so, and I think this kind of gets at that as well, as like, we need to kind of shift the focus from instruction, teacher-led, you know, because that's kind of the way we were all taught to do that, with all kids in front of us, with all supports right there within the four walls, to now all of a sudden learning can be any place, anytime. And honestly, it kind of moves from a, how do I design this, you know, my instruction, to how do we design a learning experience for students based around, that's rooted in content standards, the things that we know are right. And so, you know, so I think that's going to be one of the big pieces for administrators. And I think this is an ongoing piece, you know, for the design lab work over time, is how do we manage that shift, you know, first in our minds and our hearts to move, you know, to move in this direction, because it is very much a shift to, I've always designed it this way. Now I can kind of look, and Dr. Hawkins said it great, and I ran through the other day, let's start with the end in mind. And the best part of today is going to be coming up soon, even though all of it's been great, but you're going to get to hear from some very special panelists that'll help drive this home, I think. And so, you know, looking at how we can take this and kind of shift it to, what are kids making? What are kids doing with the standards, with the content? How are they exploring? How are they creating? And Jeff, I know you're our state lead for STLP. Courtney, you may or may not have had a multiple time STLP state champ in Wood County. I don't know, maybe. Yep. And so we know that kids making stuff, and that's the way we affectionately go with kids making stuff, kids creating, you know, using digital products, can be so powerful to their learning and their experience. And so the shift is, how do I evaluate that as a teacher, right? How do I assign a grade to that? Like I've always done this, that doesn't fit, right? Sometimes. And so that's an important piece of the design lab work over time, is how can districts start to share, hey, you know, this is how we're looking at designing lessons formatively. And it kind of gets to what I don't know if we're a bunch of math nerds. My certification wasn't in math, I know that, but we formalize everything. Did I just make up a word, by the way? We put everything in a formula. And so we kind of looked at, when you look at digital learning experiences, kind of four pieces. And what I'm really excited about is Kim and Carol, like the teachers that are going to, you know, share soon, looking through their slides, they're going to hit so many of these things. It's going to be so great for examples. One of the things, relationships and feedback. Okay. And so looking at the experiences that maybe we're coming from and that we're learning from in the spring too, and maybe Letcher County mentioned, and there's other districts across the state starting all virtual. How do we build, we know building relationships with our students is the right thing. How do we do that? How do we do that now? Well, there's ways to do it. And as a matter of fact, our kids could probably teach us about digital relationship building more so than we could teach ourselves at times. And so I know I learned a lot from my 5th and 6th grader at home on how to do that type of connecting. And so, but consistent communications, one of the things that, you know, just being intentional about, like, how am I going to build in consistent communication with not only my students, but also their families? And we'll talk about that in a minute as well. But collaboration, you know, I know Mike talked about all of his teachers receiving some G Suite app, you know, professional learning. Guess what? Those tools are really aimed at how can we work together in the same space at the same time, and how can we collaborate? So teachers, how can we leverage that and be intentional? Because we know that's a good learning strategy. Think, pair, share, right? We were doing that in the classroom. We can do that virtually. We can do that digitally. How do we teach how to be, you know, digital learners, digital citizens while we're engaged in this? And feedback loops and designing lessons formatively, you know, that is a shift that folks sharing experiences over time are really going to help. we've heard a lot of, I messaged Jeff and Courtney earlier. I said, it's so fun to hear these non-techie folks say asynchronous and synchronous so much. I know what they've been reading, you know? And so, and even the gentleman, oh, I can't remember his name, from Letcher County. He's like, he's the junior, you know, CIO. And so that's the type of relationships that it's going to take between instructional and all of us in order to produce asynchronous on-demand options for kids, and how to get the right mix of synchronous in and be planned and intentional on how to build those digital workflows before we ever get to part 3 of the formula, which is actually the instructional design, right? And so I do want to pause there, because I want to say this. You know, day 1 may be August 26th, or it may be August 6th. I don't know what it is for districts. It varies. I think most are pushing a little further back. But, you know, if you could focus on 2 pieces in the first couple of weeks on how to set up your classroom routines digitally, how to let kids know you're going to build relationships and what that's going to look like, how to, you know, the digital workflows, you know, how to build those into the culture of the digital classroom that you're creating, I think is going to go a long way to, just like you would do in person, setting the classroom norms and procedures, and it sets the stage for moving forward with content and learning experiences. And so don't feel like you have to jump right into the first standard the first day. It's not going to happen, right? It's not going to happen. And Jeff mentioned that. It's like, got to be understanding. So I kind of got through 2 pieces of the formula there, and I did say a lot, Jeff. And so I do want to make sure we can kind of pause there, because I want to pick up with the other 2 pieces, because it fits into the broader conversation. So anybody that has comments or questions or wants to chime in on those 2 pieces would certainly maybe a good time.
I think that one thing, the next question, and so I'm going to go ahead and ask that now. So the 4th question in this panel, to kind of finish us up here, is where are students in the design? Here in just a little bit, and this was one thing I think you were alluding to, is that we're going to have one whole segment just on student voice. And when I see the 4 components here, of course, I don't want to steal their thunder, but when I see these 4 components, let me just say that if this is our future, then we're in good hands. That's all I want to say. Yeah. So I'm going to throw this out. So where are students then? Because we have about 5 or 6 minutes to finish up this segment. Where are students in this design? Thank you,
I'll be
Jeff.
happy to jump in. Absolutely. So obviously, you know, I'm coming at this from a little bit of a perspective, you know, leading our student technology leadership program across the state. One of the things we have to keep in mind when we're talking about where our students in the design is really just keeping them at the forefront of, and it loops back around to what Ben was talking about with the sort of the try and fail forward is, you know, we're going to get feedback from kids. It's important to remember to get that feedback. And it's not just a notion of, you know, we're going to push through this one way or another. But as a teacher, we have this valuable resource in students that can give us an idea about how they're learning and what is working for them. And those can be avenues that we sort of focus our instruction towards. Now, I will loop back a little bit and also say that there's a lot of questions. Ben also brought up, you know, he posed a question, you know, I'm a teacher. And if I'm doing a lot of student-based, you know, letting them make stuff, you know, sometimes the question is, how do I grade that? How do I assess that? How can I make sure that we're hitting the standards? And so it's a plug, and I apologize, but let me give you a plug. When we talk about STLP, I know that a lot of folks think about STLP as competitions and coming to the state championship. But what we've built it on secretly kind of in the background is it is like kind of the secret weapon for NTI, because everything we do with STLP, all the different competition categories are based on classroom learning models. And so there are activities in there that are things that are already happening in most classrooms prior to COVID. And so these were things, you know, from people making documentaries to digital art, different things were happening. And the beauty of it is as a teacher, all of those rubrics and all those resources to help you review and see how students can be sort of, you know, assessed on some of these technology pieces already exist. and they're free, ready for anyone to use, whether you participate, quote unquote, in STLP or not. And I'll put the link here in the chat window, but jump in there and know that every resource that we have built up over the last several years is designed for teachers in the classroom. It's not designed for an after-school club or an activity where you just get together once a week. It's designed for the reality that most teachers are already incorporating technology into their everyday curriculum. And STLP was a reflection of that. So take advantage of those rubrics that are out there. They're already made, and we're in the process now of tying them into the new Kentucky academic standards for technology. So as a teacher, you jump in, you grab these rubrics, you use them through your classes, and you already know that you're hitting the standards. And on top of it, I'm going to challenge you to think about, how, a lot of folks are trying to figure, well, how are we going to deal with this new graduation requirement of demonstration of technology proficiency? Well, things like the Fire Summit and things like STLP are ready-made opportunities for your kids to demonstrate technology competency. I'll step off my soapbox there, go back out of it, take off my STLP hat for a second, which is hard. But yeah, that's kind of where I'm looking at it.
Well, that is wonderful. Listen, thank you guys so much. You're going to be back in just a second. So we're going to transition. So if you want to let me share back there, Ben, I want to, because these teachers, I know you guys see them, they're ready. They are ready to go. So guys, if you've got teacher friends that you want to text, call, or email very quickly, do that, because the superstars are coming on stage. We're just the warm-up act. That's all we are. Because this is where and then you've got the bigger magic later when we've got the students. So, but thank you, Ben, Courtney, and Jeff. I mean, this is exactly, this is the launching point for our segment, and this was absolutely perfect. But you guys are going to be back because we're going to have a bigger discussion here. So let me go ahead and I'm going to pull up my screen. We're looking at teachers, tools, and strategies. So we have Shauna Priest and Angel Deerfield with us. And friends, are you all out there?
All right, I'm Angel Deerfield from Louisa East Elementary School in Lawrence County, Kentucky. I teach, currently I teach social studies and on-demand writing. I've taught all subjects except reading, but who knows, maybe that's down the pipe too.
Absolutely.
All right, so Kim, are you going to share your screen?
Can you see it?
Yes, I can see it.
Okay, yeah, you go right ahead. You just tell me when to change it.
Gotcha. Okay.
Help her.
Okay, I love it. Well, the first question that we were asked to discuss was how do we stay connected with our students? And I felt like this was one of those moments where you just have to get real and just be a human. We're dealing with our kids, we're dealing with their parents. This is new for everybody. Go back to the old fashioned, make your phone calls. Of course, text messaging, kids are going to respond to that. But I mean, I don't know how all teachers are, but I do have a pretty good relationship with mine. And most of my parents, I have their cell phone number in my phone. We're Facebook friends. So we would make personal phone calls. I work with a team of 3, and we would take turns. I know it was around the second week. And we would take turns taking food to their houses and just dropping it off on the door. So making those personal connections was huge. Whether it was, like I said, a phone call, a house visit, standing on the porch and just waving at them, just making those connections, because some of these kids don't have that. And if you want to make the personal connection with your kids and get them to learn, you're going to have to make the effort. The concern I have about this coming year is if we don't get to make those personal connections one-on-one in the classroom, we're going to have to find ways to do that virtually. So that's one of the things we've been working on in our district. So, okay, I'm ready. Okay, we got pretty good at Zoom this year. I had never used it before. Just by default, we started with Google Meet. And we were having some technical issues with it, so we went to Zoom. And I just found out actually yesterday in our first PD session with our school, we have to go back to Google Meet. We're not allowed to use Zoom anymore. I don't know what the deal is with the platform, but we really liked Zoom. The kids really loved that they could change the backgrounds, and they were in different places. But one of the things that really helped with us was we would set up, and you can see on the screen here, these are invitations that we made for our kids, and I just have a little app, and would make these, and we would make them fun. Like the middle one there, you see it says brunch bunch, and we would tell them just to bring their favorite morning snack. You know, just come in front of the camera, sit with us, talk with us, and again, that goes back to those personal connections. On the one on the left, that particular one was a trivia time, social studies. So we would play games, and it was just a great way to do a formative assessment with these kids, playing games with them. And we would use different games. One of them I'm going to talk about was Kahoot. But I even went back to straight up old fashioned. My mom was a teacher. My dad was a teacher. So of course, you know, I know a lot of the old school tricks, but seriously just printing out a question and holding it up in front of the screen. And it would have choice A, B, C, D. And they would just say, oh, I like A, or I like C. Straight up old fashioned ways. You know, you got to make it different for them. You know, you can't do the same thing all the time. They're going to get bored. And they told me that. I don't want to do this anymore. I want to do something different. Okay, next one. Okay, for anyone who hasn't used Kahoot, I highly, highly recommend Kahoot. It is a kid favorite. They request it on a pretty regular basis. We did it once a week. And it was a great way to do a formative check on whatever we were learning. A lot of the questions are already embedded. You can pick out what you want based on your topic, or you can create your own. We did a lot where we created our own. But you can, I know some of my colleagues were like, how did you play Kahoot when you don't have your screen in front of you? You just screen share it. So, you know, my mom, for instance, was like, how in the world are you doing that? But you just screen share it, and these are things you just learn to do. Nobody taught us how to do it. You just learn. But screen share them, and the kids just love it. And the parents got involved. That's one thing I loved about it. The parents are sitting there with the kids. The siblings are sitting there. Their dogs are sitting there with them. And you can track the progress as you're going along. So it's a really good resource that I highly recommend. This was my all-time favorite. The thing that I think the kids just took it and ran and blew it out of the water. One of our state representatives actually contacted me about some of our projects, and she said, the governor wants to see these, which of course we were like, yeah, you know, this is great. But these, I couldn't pull up all the videos, of course, but the little picture down at the bottom, Shauna, you're going to love this. I know you see your girls at the bottom. This is Shauna Priest's niece, and I guess Caroline would be your cousin at the bottom. Sorry, I didn't hear you.
I said my unofficial niece.
Unofficial niece, yes. And I am their unofficial auntie. They just call me auntie. Just a backstory, my child is in their class, so so they've all been very close. But what they're doing there is they created a little TikTok that talked about how much they miss being at school. And then we've got at the top up there in the middle with all the bones, those were just pictures taken on a hike. Up in the far right corner, you're going to see Healthy at Home, and that was, you know, the governor's initiative. And then we have the paw print on the bottom right. Our school asked students to post paw prints at their house so they could take a tour around Lawrence County and see all the different paw prints. At the bottom left is actually my niece. She did a little video, and in there it says, keep them to yourself. And it was a song that was perfect. It was, I think it was, is it Neil Diamond? I can't think of the name of it. Anyway, keeping everything to yourself, you know, no touching,
Caroline.
no kissing, no hugging.
Yeah, it was.
I'm sorry?
It was Sweet Caroline. I remember watching that one.
Oh, I mean, yes, it was just so unique. And then the little boy up here, Chase Kendrick, is on there with holding the baseball. He did all these different pictures, just still photos, and put them into a video about things he's missing during this time. And then we have the little boy, another little field trip with them there. So the projects just blew me out of the water. It was just amazing. Here, this is just a screen. Really, I just wanted to share this one. I know a lot of people use Google Classroom. But the quote here is what I loved, and I did this for Kentucky Go Digital, talking about Google Classroom. But a lot of our kids really preferred, at the beginning of the year, they preferred paper packets. And one of the things that I preach from day one is you will learn your user ID, your password, and you will start using it. Every test I gave in social studies was on Google Classroom, every single one. They did a written portion, and then they had their multiple choice. But this little boy here, a friend of my son, said, "Miss D, you're right, Google Classroom is much better than the paper packets for NTI." He hated it in the beginning, and now his mom's like, "Thank God you showed him how to do this." And it's not difficult, and it's great for teachers. If they've never used it, I highly recommend it. The last question we were asked was preparations for the next school year, which we are in full swing here already. We've had an instructional leadership team meeting. We've had multiple meetings, actually, about what teachers and parents, they've got teachers, parents, and then we're going to have a student panel as well as to what is going to be expected. We have contracts ready, whether they're going with option 1, which is in person, option 2 is the virtual, and then option 3 is called the virtual academy. Of course, virtual classrooms, which you'll see that on my next slide, make them fun, have fun with it. I did mine at like 2 and 3 o'clock in the morning when I couldn't sleep. You know, just different classroom settings there for your kids. I'm going to do holidays as well. Independent research projects is something that we want to see our kids doing this year, especially if we have a virtual setting, kind of like with last year. Just using our standards in social studies and throwing that out there to them. I'm also going to use it in writing. I'm going to have a virtual notebook for my kids to do this year that they will keep for on-demand writing. Something else I put in here, this is new for us. We always have people that pop in the classroom. I've had Shauna's Aunt Kim come in and read. My mom comes in. We've had doctors and lawyers and all these different community members come in. But I've already talked to a couple different ones, and one of which is Dr. Frazier, and he's going to be coming in and talking to our kids virtually about science. We don't get to spend a whole lot of time on science in 5th grade. So he's going to be coming in, and that's something he'll do with us. And then my husband always comes in for a nice government unit. He's an attorney, so he'll be talking about government. We're working with Sullivan University, which is here in Louisa. We take field trips with them, so hopefully we'll have some virtual field trips. And then, of course, we always have KVEC. They've got our back. So my last screen is, I think, some pictures. Pictures of virtual classrooms so far. Again, these were done at 2 or 3 o'clock in the morning, just having fun with it. I'll be creating more that'll have, I'm going to do a Christmas and Valentine's Day and Halloween. So we're just going to have all kinds of fun with it. But back to what Jeff said, I think it was Jeff, I was taking some notes. Go back to your kids. Ask them. They know how to do these things. You know, I have a kid that's going to be a sophomore and one that's going to be a skater. They already know a lot of this stuff. Ask them. They're a huge resource.
And I think one thing that's pretty magical, going back to the stuff that Bent and Jeff and Courtney talked about with us earlier, they talked about the importance of relationships and feedback. And you can already see, and I know that as we go into Shauna's component, that we're going to see that as well. But most importantly, you've taken a lot of time here to create opportunities for interactions and opportunities for relationships. And that's going to be a key point, especially in remote learning. So Shauna Priest from Paintsville Elementary. So Shauna, tell us all about your virtual classroom.
All right, I'm Shauna Priest, and I am a 5th grade teacher, social studies at Paintsville Elementary School. This is beginning my 26th year, I believe. So I'm an old dog that's had to learn some new tricks. And thanks to Kim, I'm finally figuring a lot of things out. So I also started a virtual classroom. This is a work in progress. I will put, hopefully, I'm planning on daily posting, my I can statements or objectives, and then what our agenda is for the day, what they will need to do. I posted a few links. I've got my Padlet. We have a Facebook class page, Dojo, Google Classroom. I'll probably have a few others, but this was just kind of my work in progress, just getting started. Okay, you can go. Okay, the QFT which Kim is the queen of QFT and has faithfully guided me. It's something I use quite a bit in my classroom. So I will be using that, absolutely. I just went ahead and just made a slide. These are the questions, or I'm sorry, the rules that you have to follow for the QFT. We'll discuss those. This will probably be something I do the first week of school, just teaching them how to do this. And it's something on something else I'm going to share with you in just a minute. This is something we do in class and small groups, but something that we're going to be able to continue doing online as well. Okay, so, and this is just another example. We're going to, using Google Slides to post a primary source that the students will be using in a QFT. And I actually used it on the Padlet we're going to share in just a second. But it's just, I think it's a really cute, quick, easy way to share those things, gets the kids' attention. It's not just a boring black and white photo. So probably something, I will use something similar to that. Okay, so this is my favorite thing that I have learned during this time of virtual learning. This is called Padlet, if you're not familiar with it. Kim, do you want to go? That link should work. Okay, while she's pulling that up, I'll go ahead and tell you, my students, we use QFT at least once a week, once every 2 weeks. It's something that they're very familiar with. And this Padlet, I was introducing this QFT, American Progress. So I'd given my students the photo, the primary source, American Progress, for them to look at. And I lost you. For them to look at, and that started our introduction into the Westward movement. So Padlet is really, if you've never, there we go. If you've never used Padlet, I can't recommend it enough. I think it's very easy to use. The kids, it's very interactive. So we just went through the steps, reminded them of the steps that they use with the QFT, something they're very familiar with. You can click on the picture and it will enlarge the painting. So anyway, so we gave them the first day. What I did was I just gave them time during the day to talk about, to look at the picture with the QFT. They ask as many questions as they can. They don't stop to judge themselves or try to answer the question. They write down the question exactly as it is stated, or exactly as it pops into their mind. There's no judgment. My students really, I think, feel safe in asking questions. I really emphasize that a lot, that there's no judgment here. So you can see that they ask some excellent questions. Do the trains in the background represent new technology? Excuse me. Are the strings the woman is holding telephone lines? What's the setting? What does she represent? So they're thinking from when I began using QFT at the beginning of the year until this is in March, April. You can see their questions are just so much more in depth. You change your questions from open to closed and closed to open. And we really got to the point that they don't really even do closed answered questions anymore, very rarely, mostly open questions. So we use these as our jumping off points. You can see the kids have their initials at the end. They also started to comment on each other's posts, and how many people are in the picture. They may have answered that for someone, or they may have gone a little more in detail about their questions. But I learned how to do this. Then Kim trained me in about 30 minutes, and it was super, super easy. And it's very interactive. Just an excellent program. I did Padlet one day. This was towards the end of the year, so we were kind of just trying out some new things. Padlet went so well with them. The last week I asked them what they wanted to cover, something that we hadn't gotten to yet. And of course, they picked the Civil War. And there was so much to cover. There were so many things that I wanted to teach them, but I wasn't able to. So I let them choose what they wanted to learn. And I used Padlet, if Kim, excuse me, pulls that up. I used Padlet, and I just posted probably 25 videos, websites, different things like that. And they chose 3 things that they wanted to learn about, and then they had to write a short essay, short paragraphs telling me about what they learned, and they really like that. So I love that Padlet, you can add so many different things into your lesson. It's not just, it's so interactive, and it's a great way for the kids to put their 2 cents in. See their questions, they asked questions about, or they talked about what they chose, and it was kind of just more of this was just a practice and touching on what they wanted to learn. But it was a good practice for them learning how to comment, share, and discuss on Padlet. So I think it's a great way if you're not doing a Zoom in particular. You can also do Screencastify or a program like that. I use that and overlaid it over some of my lessons. We use this. Padlet also has a place where you can record yourself and link that or add that into your video. So I highly recommend Padlet. It's wonderful.
And you can use Screencastify with this.
Yes. I love Screencastify. And then this was just another slide. I have a Facebook page that the kids, I can communicate with my kids and my parents. If they don't have Facebook, we do Dojo, or, the dreaded email. I never seem to get my emails where they need to go, but this is just another example. So for someone who's been doing this for a really long time, I started off with chalk and chalkboard. We've come a long way. And if I can do this, anybody can do this. It's so easy to use Padlet is, and I just highly, highly recommend it.
And I love the goldfish on the bookshelf, BTW.
I'm sorry.
I love sorry about that. I thought I was muted. I love the goldfish on the shelf.
Oh, I know. I thought that was so cute. Okay. So just to wrap up, we have also been doing the virtual pages, just it's a little more interesting to the kids. We're doing team meetings to plan and implement instruction in class and for out of class. We also do virtual field trips. There's so many good field trips out there that you can link to. Padlet, Google Meet. I think Screenamatic, I believe, is the other one. Maybe I've confused two. Screenamatic and Castify. Those are really great ways to, I use a lot of slideshows, and I would just do the Screenamatic over top of that, and then narrate and discuss with the kids before they went into their own lesson. Google Classroom, of course, and then I think the big thing is just got to be flexible. It's a crazy time. And
the beauty of this, because, you guys didn't even realize, and I didn't really see it myself until Ben and them and were showing it, but you've gone a whole lot into instructional design, and, especially in using Padlet and using it for new information and that kind of thing. And then also, most importantly, both of you have addressed, evidence of learning. And I think that's the big thing, especially with you as you engage the students in the inquiry practices of the new Kentucky Academic Standards for social studies. That's a big plus in using multiple platforms to give the students the opportunity to engage in those. I cannot say enough. I believe, Shauna, that is your last one, right?
Yes.
I cannot say enough. Everybody, just, give them a few snaps there, give them, some thumbs up on your pictures, whatever you want to do. Let them know how amazing they are. And listen, and thank you, Shauna, because when all that started happening, windows were shooting up and I was like, I did not touch that. So, but you saw the cavalry came in, so we're okay.
We have worked many times together.
Yes, we have. And this is, we'll talk about my computer. It's only 3 weeks old for me, so it's a whole nother world. So thank you all so much. And so now you guys can kind of kick back and watch the rest of the show. For
hey,
a little
Kim.
Back in. Go ahead, Courtney.
I'm so sorry, but can I ask just a couple questions after listening to them share? Okay, you all were able to share from Kahoot, virtual notebooks, Padlets, virtual classrooms, which I think, Shauna, you said that you were learning new tricks. That was a pretty awesome virtual classroom to learn a new trick. So for the teachers out there, how did you all learn this? Where did you get the information? What advice do you have for them? Because you all shared a lot. How did you learn that?
The virtual classroom, I found on Facebook a group that was wonderful, YouTube videos, and showed how to share that stuff. Padlet was with Kim helped me with that. I think there's some videos on Padlet. Padlet is free up to 6. Kim, is that right, or 4? And then it's like a very small monthly fee that I went ahead and joined. And the Right Question Institute has got some great videos on using Padlet and Google Forms. Kim, we participated in a training with them. There were some great sources there. I highly recommend Right Question Institute also. They're on top of it.
I can speak on behalf of Kahoot. It was something I did when I was a math teacher. Just something we found. As far as getting in there with the virtual classrooms, I highly recommend narcolepsy. It helps when you can't sleep. Just go ahead and start playing. Actually, a friend of mine, Randy McDavid, was one who I had seen hers, and I just saw her out, and I said, all right, show me this. So I did mine like, I don't know, it's been a month and a half ago, I guess. And so I'm going to do some major tweaking with mine and make some different ones. But just got to get in there and get your hands dirty. Make some mistakes, learn from them.
I love it. You mentioned interactive notebooks. What are some of the tools or some of the designs if you are a teacher watching and that's something that you want to do? Because this virtual world, and I've heard so much in districts, they're trying to limit the paper just because of, being clean and the whole issue of collecting it. And a lot of teachers, that's their bread and butter, is that notebook. So how do you get started?
This is going to be my first year for an actual digital notebook, but I'm just using Google Docs. I've created some Google Slides, and then I will insert the doc into that slide, and the kids will pull that doc out, and they just send it to me that way. So I'm just using good old Google Docs.
And I promise this is my last question to you all. You talked about parents and how like the parents enjoyed Kahoot and the parents enjoyed being involved. How do you communicate with your parents, and how do you hope to communicate with them as we turn into this new way of communicating and learning with the parents too?
I have cell phone numbers, basically any way I could possibly get in touch with them, even if it's to go down, and this is going to sound crazy, but we had a student who didn't have internet, and one of our family resource members said, well, they'll meet you at Hardee's. She works at Hardee's. So you just have to, again, go in there and get dirty. If it means to go back to the old-fashioned home visits, that's what you got to do for these kids. I had a Facebook Messenger video show up one day, and it was one of my students. And I said, how in the world did you get this? And he wanted to show me his chickens. That's all it was. He just wanted to show me his chickens. So he was one of my students who's a special needs student, and he said, I just wanted to show you my chickens. He said, I miss you, and that's the thing, they do. They miss us, and we miss them. But getting in there and playing with these resources, I've learned some today. Kim and Shauna had showed me Padlet as well at the beginning of all this, and I'll be honest, I kind of put it to the back of my mind for a little while, just trying to decompress for the summer. But I just texted my principal and said, we're getting on Padlet. That's something we need to do more of. But another one that we're working with is Edpuzzle. We love Edpuzzle. It's a great resource. And then, of course, Screencastify is a great one.
I saw James Allen shared Slides Mania. That's what I think I'm going to use do my digital notebook on. It's really neat. I haven't done that yet.
Good, I'll check that.
That's it's in the chat. That's on my list.
I see that. Okay.
Well, thank you. Thank you all.
Thank you.
It's awesome. And that's why you're on the panel, because you all just don't care to learn. So, but it's inspirational for teachers that may be a little overwhelmed, that you all you didn't know it all. You just got in there and, as you said, got dirty and figured it out. Good job.
And I think one thing, especially going into this next panel, so thank you, Courtney, for asking those questions. And you guys, thank you for the chat. But thank you, Angel and Shauna. You guys are amazing. But I think going into this next panel, having Shauna and Angel, and you heard both of them allude to a time. So this is the beauty of this in professional learning for me. I see people all over the region. And because I see people all over the region, I know who's interested in this and who's interested in that, who's teaching this, who's teaching that. And so one of the things that I love to do is I love to connect people. So on the day that I was learning Padlet, I thought, oh my gosh, I want to get with teachers and learn Padlet. Because to me, there is nothing better than watching teachers learn something and that whole thinking out loud and everything else. So we crossed district lines. This was one positive that has come out of this, because I knew that Angel likes to be innovative. I knew Shauna liked to be innovative. So I just started calling people up, and there's other things that we have worked on this with, but I just contacted them and said, hey, we're doing this at this time. Do you have it available? So crossing over district lines, because we're in this for the kids, nobody else but the kids. So you cross those district lines and you build those relationships that are really going to make a big impact. And that's going to be the beauty of all this virtual learning, and most importantly, virtual professional learning. So now we're going to go into this component, but thank you, Angel and Shauna. Yes, you are rock stars. Yes.
Kudos.
So when we look at this and we talk about how have you taken the in-person, so my friends Vonda and Stephanie, who are in a remote location as well somewhere, they're going to be joining in at this point. And I'm going to fix this so that I can see them, so I can see everybody when we're talking and stuff like that, but that's not going to work either, so who cares? So I'm going to move on. So because I want to be able to see people's faces when they talk, so we can do that later, but we're going to look at professional learning now. And we're only going to I'm going to ask Carol to set the timer for about 12 minutes, because we have 3 questions. So if we can take 3 or 4 minutes, because again, we've really got to get into student voice and getting back with Jeff and Courtney and Ben, because I think I want to bring them back into the conversation again. But we have the 4 of us, Carol, Stephanie Kidd, who is with the special education department here, and Vonda Adams, who is with the special education department here. We 4 have been doing a lot of online and virtual training in different ways. So we wanted to bring that conversation together with you guys so that you could hear this, so you could give us some input as well and talk to us about your ideas. But our question was how have you taken the in-person experience of communication, collaboration, and networking to the online format, because that's a whole nother world. So that question framed our thinking, and in framing our thinking, we're going to go to the first one, which is how have you addressed teachers' need to interact, collaborate, or network during trainings? And I think Vonda or Stephanie, you guys had a discussion about that. Jump right in there.
Yeah, we're unmuted.
Okay. Can you hear me, Kim?
We sure can.
Okay. So one of the things that we started out with was when we're doing our, basically our PDs that we've had, we started out with just chat and just making sure that they were putting their information in chat, so everybody got that opportunity. So who are you? A little bit about yourself, what's the interest that you have, where do you work at, what grade you are in, those kind of things. And then they've got somebody they can email back and forth as a buddy. And then also in that, we would do breakout rooms. So you can do breakout rooms, you know, based on interest, based on grades, those kind of things. And then of course we would have them just basically, the great thing about Zoom is they can raise their hand. And then at that point you can do, you know, have that person speak out, and they're not talking over each other. A lot of times they're afraid that they're going to speak out and they're going to speak over top of someone.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, and then also with that chat, I noticed that when Stephanie was training just last week, the teachers were actually chatting back and forth with each other, but it was good. It was a good chat because they were sharing resources, they were sharing ideas, they were sharing contact information. So it was just really cool that they were able to, like you said, break through those district lines, and they were connecting just because they had a common, they had commonality. They taught the same subjects, and they were teaching the same grade levels. So it was great to see them work together and plan to communicate later on with each other. And then of course we also used reactions, the feature with reactions with Zoom. And then of course I loved the annotations piece. Yes. And I too have been learning a lot, because I think we as teachers, that's all we're doing, is we're constantly learning. And I still feel that I'm still a teacher. I may have a different audience. I may not have students in front of me now, but I'm still teaching, and I'm still trying to learn, and I'm still trying to prepare and trying to plan the same way that I did when I was in the classroom. But that annotation piece was just awesome for us to use with our participants, because they could actually just put their thoughts right there. And because, you know, Stephanie and I, when we train, we love to be able to see what's going on. We do lots of activities with our teachers. And so that piece was missing for us, but because we could have them annotate, we could at least see their thoughts and the thought process that was going on, and do a little bit of some monitoring of what was going on. And then of course we use the Google Classroom as well to connect, and we used the comments feature in there and was able to give feedback that way.
Well, I'm going to go ahead and let you give us that segue to the next question, which is, how has remote learning or training changed how you present and share materials? I know Carol wants to talk about this a little bit, but I think one thing that you said in the last question that I just want to address, when you were talking about how we're all learning new tricks, you know, breaking that brick and mortar border, that boundary that we've always had. I think it's almost like you can have, it's like we have so much freedom now, we don't know how to use it. And the possibilities are endless. And because they're endless, we're kind of like, oh my gosh, where do I go next? Mm-hmm. So that in mind, so how has remote learning and training changed how you present and share materials? So Carol, you were talking about that a little bit earlier.
Right, if you'll go to my slide there, it kind of gives the visual. One of the things that we started, obviously last year, the reading writing standards were tweaked and we needed to roll that out. Well, not everyone got to attend those. So even before COVID happened, we were on board. Jeff was wanting us to, excuse me, Dr. Hawkins, was wanting to get us focused on how can we meet the needs of our schools and districts and get the information to them and the training they need so that it can be done, you know, after school, during the school day, during PLCs, however. So we had actually already started this process last year with the standards, and what you're seeing there on the screen is a professional learning video series that is actually, it's continuing to grow and grow and grow, but it started out from how can we make this doable for our principals to be able to meet with teachers? So you're going, if you go to the holler, all the directions are right there. There's a series of 5 videos with the standards, first of all, explaining the standards. Then we also have, I have a 1-hour video. Those 5 are about 30 minutes each, but there is a 1-hour video just on composition or the writing standards of how we get our kids to make that transition to doing written responses based on texts that they've read. So we started out with that. It is since grown. We have, there you go, thank you. Right there on the slide is an overall explanation of what we have, but those 10 interdisciplinary literacy practices that are across all content areas. As I always tell the teachers, on the left side of the standards document, this is what we are, the minimum we are required to teach. But when you look on the right side of that page, you have 10 literacy practices that I always say will give you the most bang for your buck. But teachers can't just take that, read it, and know what to do. So we have a series right now, 6 videos where we're videoing some on Thursday. We're going to do 4 more, but we've taken each interdisciplinary literacy practice. We're taking about 10 minutes clarifying what the intent of that practice is. And then Rebecca King from Pikeville High School has actually been working with me some, and she is on some of these videos showing what it looks like in a classroom, because I think that's the best way we can help teachers. We have these long standards, wordy standards. How can we break it apart? How can you know what your intent is? How far do you want to take kids in rigor? Where do you want your kids to end up? And just as you saw from these 2 teachers, I was taking notes the whole time, and I jotted down words that are actually, I may use in a training or that you'll hear on these videos, where they let their guide be what the standards are asking, what the intent of rigor is for kids, and they're making it happen online. They're not backing off from, just because I have to do it online, I'm going to make it a little easier, because they mentioned on-demand writing, which that's my number one request, is my position here. How can we help kids with writing? And the standards and how you use your community specialists, all these things that I've jotted down that they know where they need to go. My issue, and I mentioned this to Dr. Hawkins and Dr. Bowling, is we have all these new teachers that come on board every year. We have these experienced teachers like you just saw. They know where their path is. They have the playbook. They know, and then they make it happen. We can't forget about those teachers who have not been introduced to these standards, and now we can't have face-to-face trainings, so we have to make sure that we're providing professional learning for them, and to do it in a way that they can turn around and implement it in their classroom. So what you're seeing on the screen comes from that point of view. And especially when we look at the reading and writing standards, and we bring in the new social studies standards. Kim and I have done a lot of work there. You're seeing that healthy integration, because the rigor has increased more for K-5 in reading, writing, and now we have the social studies. So how can we take those and help our teachers understand how you can embed it? Now, you saw that happen from these two experienced teachers. It's obvious they did a phenomenal job. Mm-hmm. But we are trying, from our standpoint, to make sure all teachers still continue to get the support they need to do what they know how to do in their classroom, and how to make it happen remotely.
So Vonda, why don't you and Stephanie talk a little bit, because this is a biggie for you guys. So how has remote learning and training changed how you present and share the materials?
Well, one of the things that we realized is that not everybody is very comfortable with certain types of platforms such as Zoom. So we do a day before in which they can log on, and we can just kind of go through those kind of things with them. We haven't had a whole lot of participation in certain ones, but you know, it's been helpful for others who are not familiar with it. And then of course, making sure that they understand when they log on, this is kind of that preloading part, is making sure that they know that they're going to need a computer, that they're going to be doing some interactions and those kind of things, and it's not going to be convenient for them to log on their phone. That's a big thing for us. And then of course, making sure that updates are done prior to, because you know how those run into issues. And then of course, the planning, you know, that you have to do. You have to be prepared. And for us, planning means getting all the materials out to districts and making sure they're out in time and prepared, those kind of things. And sometimes that means that you're planning weeks ahead of time, not just 2 days before training or anything. So that's a big thing for us, is making sure that planning, that preparation time, that's been huge, a big change for the way we've been teaching.
Right. And then also some other challenges is that, you know, that engagement piece is still just really, you have to be very creative how you're going to get those participants engaged, because like Steffi said, sometimes it may be because they're just not comfortable with the platform that we're using. And that's why we try to take care of that ahead of time. But still, some people are still just hesitant about speaking out, and they may be hesitant about putting something in chat for everyone to see and those types of things. So that has been a challenge. And of course, obviously, if you can't get them to participate and engage, you can't very well give feedback on what you've been talking about. So that's also a challenge for us. And then, of course, the piece that I miss the most is that personal connection that you make with your teachers and building that rapport with them. Because if I can't make eye contact with someone, and I like to read their body language and those types of things, so it's really hard to interact and build those connections with the teachers that we're working with right now. But there have been some benefits of going to this platform, and Stephanie's going to start us out on that part.
Well, one of the big benefits is we don't have to worry about how many people can fit in a space, because sometimes at KVAC we don't always have the room, and so this way we can have as many people as we want on there, and that's been a great benefit. Another thing is, of course, you know, we can record these, and then they're out on the holler, they're available. I can put them up on the Google Classroom in which they were in, those kind of things. And that's wonderful because then they can watch it over and over again. If they want to use it in their classroom, it's available to them, especially little snippets where we've explained how to do a certain procedure or the steps of the CSA model, whatever it may be, using those manipulatives for the first time, because sometimes teachers aren't comfortable with that. Those kind of things are out there for them to go over again and again. And then, of course, the other thing is, you know, the broadband, you know, being able to broaden the range of our network. Now we're talking to multiple teachers all the time. They're on our Facebook. We've got options for many things. So we've kind of broadened that network now, and we've got more teachers to actually come to us because there's no driving. They don't have to drive. They don't have to take off a day. Right now, they can do it whenever. And that's a big thing. We've noticed that with our online that we have. You know, it's being blown up right now because they're getting it all the time through the autocrat. We're seeing they're getting their certificates, those kind of things. That's great.
Yeah, and I want to speak to that, what she just said about getting those certificates. Like Carol had alluded to before, you know, Dr. Hawkins, he challenged us at the beginning of the year, last school year, to produce these videos and put them out there so teachers could use them. So we, as the special ed department, we took it a step further, and we developed quizzes and connected Google Form to that and set it up so that teachers could receive certificates as evidence or proof to their districts what they had attended for us virtually. And then, of course, we took it another step further, and we developed our own little Google site, and we are housing all of our special ed trainings and information and those types of things, which can be accessed via the holler.org. So we're just, it's like everything just came into alignment for us, and we were able to just roll with this when our teachers needed it, because we had conferences that we had to host for our new and emerging teachers and our probationary teachers. So it was something that we had to do, and we had to be able to do it virtually. So it was really cool that we could do that and offer that to our teachers. And one more thing I want to share is that about that is that, like Stephanie said, we have teachers from all over, but I actually had a teacher from McCracken County contact me, and she wanted our resources that we had offered. She had actually watched one of our trainings and received the certificate and contacted me via email wanting access to what we had placed into Google. So that was really cool that we had reached someone way outside of our district and regional borders.
Another thing I want to add to that is not only are we getting to train our teachers for special ed, our aides are just as important in our classrooms, and they are so important. So now they're getting to see those videos too. And so they can take some time to watch those videos. They're learning strategies to use with their students. So it's really important that we are now touching, you know, our paraprofessionals.
Yeah, and of course, the last thing I want to talk about is that everybody, when you attend virtually, everybody gets that VIP seating. Everybody does. We use a document camera. And so if you're sitting at your laptop or on a computer or a desktop, then you can see really well what's going on during that training. So I thought that was a pretty cool aspect. I don't have to worry about whether someone can see what I'm doing now, or, you know, are you seated to where you can see? Everybody can see now, and everybody has that opportunity to be engaged. So there are some positive and some benefits to it. So what I like to think about is like I said earlier, I'm constantly teaching, constantly learning, and I feel that I'm still teaching. So the things that we are doing with our teachers during our trainings, we want them to pick up on that. We want them to use the document camera with their kids. If we have to teach our kids virtually, let's do the best we can with it.
Absolutely.
Thank you. And one of the things I'm kind of piggybacking on what Vonda said, the feedback that I have gotten from the professional videos being there, especially around the standards, the 5-series video around the standards and the one on writing, those are the ones that I've gotten the most feedback. And I have had emails from people in other states that want to look at how the resources and how we are teaching writing. That seems to be a big plug. And what this helps us do with our teachers giving us feedback, we know we're giving them what they need. we know that we're helping them to do their job to the best of their abilities. And so the feedback, just like Avonda and Stephanie are talking about, that is so vital to us as we design. And Kim and I, through our process, we've worked with several districts, K-3, integrating reading and writing into social studies. And what has evolved from that is our K-3 teachers need help understanding what is considered grade appropriate text. So that leads me to the next work that I will be doing and be able to make that a remote learning for our teachers.
And I think the big thing for me on this last question, and then we're going to transition, and I want to say thank you to Carol and Vonda and Stephanie, because this has made a big difference. But I think for me, the challenge, and we've mentioned that several times to everyone about the challenge of Dr. Hawkins and Dr. Bowling about really stepping outside of our comfort zone and that brick and mortar mentality. And one thing for us that we realized very early at KVEC that Dr. Hawkins and Dr. Bowling did is that technology is the great leveler. It levels that playing field. That's the one thing that we as rural communities will work. And that will be the one thing that will create more equity for our students, but most importantly for our teachers, because prepared teachers create prepared students. So I think that for me, my growth has come from, because I too am a very old dog. I am far older than Shauna. You know? And so I'm getting in there with Google and all the different platforms. And I love Seesaw. I'm a huge fan of Seesaw. So when I get into a lot of these and everything like insert learning with Google, that is great for us history folk. Don't have time to talk about it. We're going to move on. But thank you so much to my buddies. So Ben, Jeff, and Courtney, if you guys would come back on. It'll be, so, but again, thank you, my friends. So if you guys will come back on, I'd like to talk to you guys about a very important component, because another aspect of the designing digital learning experiences is looking at student data and student privacy, which is so important. So I've got this graphic up here to kind of help you guys, so everyone can look at it while you're talking about this. What is the professional learning for teachers in regards to that? How do families play into that? Most importantly, how much of that is on the students' back, and then how do we help the students carry that load in terms of privacy and everything? So Ben, everybody, you with us?
Absolutely. Courtney's queued up and ready to talk about student privacy.
I love it. This is all of our CIOs. That's what they are actually this month. That they have to train their board, the Board of Educations, and they go through what the district's plan is on how they are educating teachers and all of their staff and students on how to protect student data and the privacy. So it's a big topic right now, especially when you have teachers that we have these awesome apps, but what if we are putting in student information that we shouldn't? So this conversation is a great conversation to have with his time. And I know Ben, he's very prepared, and it's board member month for this conversation too.
Yeah, absolutely.
I'm sharing, Ben, so you can.
Okay. Absolutely. That's awesome. I wasn't going to mess up your system there again. I'm just going to have you drive, but if you'll let me present, I will. That's awesome. So absolutely. So I don't know about you guys, and anybody can chime in. I mean, I don't think when we think about instructional design and when we think about, like Angel said, just getting in and doing the work and doing what it takes, sometimes I think student data privacy is kind of on the back burner for us. And as a principal, I mean, I could tell you, like, I was more concerned about getting what we needed, you know, to do the work than I was about students. And at the rapid pace at which we're looking at digital content providers, you know, we've looked at Padlet today. You mentioned Seesaw. You've mentioned, Insert Learning is one of my favorites of all time. As we look at all those things, you know, whether Zoom, Google Meet, all the stuff, all the things, right? There's a lot of student data being collected. And your graphic is really good in that it's not just one of us, it's really all of us where this kind of, where it settles. And so there's a piece for everyone. So I wanted to flash back to our digital NTI Awesome site again, because, and I hope you're okay with this. One of the things that Jeff and Courtney and I kind of talked about was we wanted to keep this section short for a couple of reasons. One, because we know what's coming next and we're as excited about it as anybody. But also two, I think in terms of designing digital learning experiences, this is probably the greatest need area. And that you could pull together some design lab work and topics and threads over the course of the year, because there's things happening with your districts, and then there's things happening with other districts that we could probably even pull in over time to help share that. But we did definitely want to provide some resources to get folks started as everybody's looking to ramp up and go. And so wanted to just kind of, on the digital learning experiences page, did want to roll down to student data privacy. So this first link, and I won't necessarily click on it, but it's kind of like an overarching umbrella of things that you can, involved in this process and look fors, and that's from the U.S. Department of Ed. And so if you're looking for some connections to where does this make sense and where does this tap into the right places, that's going to give you kind of a starting point. And then as we kind of drill down just a little, I did want to click on the student privacy pledge. And it talks a little bit about what the pledge is, and essentially it's this, right? There was, I don't know, 60 or so participants today, representing 15, 20, 25 districts, somewhere in that neighborhood. I would venture to say that almost every district has purchased some kind of online content through a provider over the course of the last 2 or 3 months to be used this year, right? And so one of the things that the Student Privacy Pledge will help you do is determine, hey, what are some of the things because I remember buying Lexia Reading, or whatever math program it was, and I wasn't asking these questions because I did not realize, that even screen captures or, like videos with students on them turn into data, in terms of these privacy policies. And then it's about how are they using them, or how are they promising that they're using them. So there are questions that you can basically ask, like, so if you're buying content from a service provider, guess what? You're well within your right to say, hey, these are some things that I have questions about. How are you addressing these? And so I think from a district leadership, school leadership, if we're looking for ways to put the things that teachers need in the hands and so that they can do the work and do it well, I think we owe it to them and to our students and to our families to make sure we're asking some of the right questions. And so I would go as far to say, over the KVEC region, where are there some examples of this that you could use moving forward, right? And you don't have to answer that question now, but that's something that you could probably be on the lookout for. And that would be, and actually it kind of relates to one of the points that we wanted to bring up was like upfront, what I would call vetting of content. What if a teacher wants to use something, right? That's a real technical way to put it. What if a teacher wants to use something? What if they wanted to use, insert learning, or because there's so many free things out there that it's easy to pick up and try. And they're signing in with their Google accounts, through school and things. And so there are districts around the state that have, and it feels kind of cumbersome in that, like, oh man, just to try this thing, I've got to check with somebody. You can look at it that way, or you could look at, I want to try this thing, I should check with somebody because there's some of my data are potentially at risk, and does it put my students' data at risk and things. And so kind of look at it more like, I think, growing up in the region that we did, I grew up in this area. And so I think we all lived probably within a very short distance of a river of some kind in our area. All river towns are, and so I kind of look at it like banks of a river. It's not really meant to hold you back. It's just meant to keep you moving in the right direction and give you a place that when you need to stop and ask questions or pause, that you've got a place to sit down and say, hey, I need some help. I need to take a break here so that we can tag in our teammates to get some help with determining some of these questions, because I never expected my teachers to know the privacy policies of all these things. It was on me and it was on other district leadership to help provide some of that. And so I think that helps districts ask some really good questions. Wanted to show you this really quickly. So need training? We got training, right? And this is not from us. I wish I could say that it was. But this is from the Student Privacy Compass. And so right here, guys, so as Courtney, you're talking about district leaders sharing with board members, hey, how are we addressing some of these issues? Right here, okay, you can actually roll down like privacy independent, like video classrooms. It rolls you all the way down. Click see more. There's like a 10 or 15 minute video. There's a slide deck. There's extra links. And so as you were talking about professional learning and we're talking about ways to address some of this, there are like great ways to embed this in short chunks over the course of time so that teachers are a little more aware of what's going on, and plus they're receiving some real-time learning that's very practical. Plus they're probably getting some PD credit for it. I mean, you can't lose with all of that. And so we have some of these videos posted even on our KDE page, on our data page, so you can actually find some of those there. So wanted to point those out because if you're a principal, a district leader, or even a teacher, there's going to address quite a few questions that you're probably asking. And if I go back to the Student Privacy Compass, one of the links on there is privacy during the pandemic. So resources. It's just a great amount of stuff. Best practices for families. Like it's going to talk you through about how do we communicate with families, questions that they need to ask, remote learning resources, and they've even pulled and curated some from across the nation that are doing a tremendous job at some of this. And so an opportunity to learn from some of our partners across the country as well. And then I did want to show you this. And if there's any folks that attended the Region 8 Technical Summit, then you might have seen this. But if you want something fun and engaging for your staff around this, to kind of give them an idea of where they stand on their knowledge set about, data security and privacy, then our friend James, you guys mentioned him earlier, he's our library media specialist lead. He worked with our chief data officer, our chief security officer as well, to come up with some of these quizzes. And so these can be fun and engaging ways for staff members to kind of test their knowledge set. And so I would certainly recommend taking these, using these any way that you makes sense for you guys in terms of professional learning and just real-time, development as we go. And so covered a lot there. Questions or comments? Courtney, I didn't see Jeff. He may be still on board with us as well.
Oh, yeah, I'm here.
There he is. There he is.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I'm going to highlight a couple quick things that were mentioned earlier. One, Angel, in your slides earlier, you had mentioned that one of your, I think Angel, I think you mentioned it, that one of the big things that you do is make sure your students know their username and password and can log in. Like those are skill sets that are realistic. Part of my background, which I didn't really introduce myself when all this started, but coming from a high school social studies background to a digital learning coach to a district technology coordinator before I came on to be a digital learning coach with Ben and Courtney and the rest of the team at KD. But part of one of my die on the hill things was I was going to make sure that all the way down to kindergarten that we had the skill set in place for kids to recognize username and password was important to them. And so that privacy thing, again, part of that, not just student data privacy, but having students take that role of also being actively engaged in protecting themselves. It's part of that digital citizenship concept But student data privacy, super big. And also something that Angel had touched on was, she loves Zoom. And then suddenly Zoom, as it wasn't a platform that was, kind of an approved, I guess is the word, but like that's a reality, is that as new things pop up on the screen that we think are super awesome, there might be some things that from a security standpoint, folks figure out this isn't worth the risk to our students. And so like Zoom, I think that is one of the issues, that there were some questions about security, back-end stuff with Zoom. And so when students are involved, there was a shift over to things that have some, tighter reins on Google Meet, Microsoft Teams. So I think that from a skill set as an educator, that's something we're going to have to add to our toolkit, into our bucket, is that flexibility of if something isn't safe for our kids. I look at it from another standpoint of, if it wasn't safe in the classroom for my kids, like if there's something physically unsafe, I'd stop using it and I'd figure out a way around it. And then we had to do the same thing with our digital tools, and be ready for that, and be ready to, let go and look, there's something else. But the thing that is key to all this is, again, it comes back to this PLN concept. It comes back to, how are we sharing with each other? If you participated in KY Go Digital a few weeks ago, it was massive across the state. And it was folks coming together and saying, here are the things that I found. If we can continue that, and if we can also take the lead and be the folks who aren't afraid to step up and say, hey, listen, I saw this issue with the tool, or something that concerns me, take advantage of this PLN that we have across through KVAC and through these learning labs, to really kind of, I won't say vet, but really it's an opportunity to informally vet some things if you're curious about it.
I want to kind of piggyback on what Jeff said. We have some districts that, now that we're in this virtual world, we can coach up our teachers, we can coach up our board members, we can coach up everyone. But now when we hand that device home, we have some school districts that are educated. They're having their parents watch a video on things they need to be aware of, the things that they need to talk to their child about, which gives us an opportunity to have that conversation that sometimes we may have not had as parents, or with the parent, on how to act while they're online, but also information that we should not be sharing, that students may think it's a-okay. So it's creating a conversation for us, and some districts are being very proactive. So before they hand that device out, they're having a video that they're sharing, or some type of process that they're going through. And what's really neat is now, hopefully they will share. They'll share district to district, this is what we're doing. And we can get that conversation going even more than we probably could have if we were, pre-COVID.
Absolutely. And I think one of the driving questions moving forward is, Jeff and Courtney are both right. We want to be able to, utilize the things that it takes to elicit evidence of learning and engage students around standards. We want those things, but also too, I think it's worth developing system inside the district. So my question would be, and I think moving forward around this topic over the course of time around a design lab would be, is there an intentional way, something where a group of folks have come together to say, hey, if somebody wants to use something new, that we have a way to help them check that out. And it makes me think back to what Mike was saying about Floyd County. They basically, today and recently, they've been training around 4 consistent things. Like, we need everybody to know the basics of Google Meet, because that's the one that we can use. It helps, when there's issues, helps to troubleshoot, but also too, we've looked into the back end privacy things and we're good there. And so this is good for our kids. They're not going to misuse this potentially. And so that, I think those type of things. And so if there are ways to share amongst the districts to say, when a teacher wants to try something new, this is a process we follow. This is a process. And where's that information available? I know before, some of you may know Diana McGee that was at Fort Thomas. I say was because she just recently retired. think, or she might have a few days left, but one of her parting gift to the district when she left was she had built, essentially, she had a bunch of that information in a spreadsheet. She managed to put it in a dashboard and left it. And so that a teacher could be like, maybe we already have that. Maybe I'm not the only one that's found it, and maybe somebody's already used it, and maybe I can talk to them about how it's going. And so another one of those PLN type, pieces where it was vetted on the back end, they had a process, and it kind of cures some of the learning curve. Like, I can go to somebody in the building even, or in the district, to even kind of learn how to use this moving forward, while at the same time protecting student data privacy as well. So I think, for me, moving forward, for us, probably we would see this as an area where there could be some really awesome design lab work over the course of time, utilizing some of these guidelines as riverbanks moving forward, basically. So.
And I think this is another example. If you don't care to give the screen back there, Ben, please. And I'm going to go in and finish this last part, but especially as we look at student voice, I think that, we've got to remember that it's like that, like I said earlier, this is so big, that it's good. We have to really work together to contain it. That's why we have to cross those district lines and really share protocols and that whole kind of thing to make sure that we're helping each other, because really we're all in it for the kids anyway. That's who matters most. So that's who we have to protect. And I love how Jeff said that. Like, if it was unsafe in my classroom, then I'm going to find a way to work around it. And we have to have that same mentality. Gotta say, just a huge, huge shout out to KDE today. God bless you. Thank you so much to, Jeff and Courtney and Ben. It has made such a difference having the people who know and who are right there in the thick of it here to share this information with these districts and everything. You cannot begin to know what a difference that your participation today made. Tremendously. And I just appreciate you guys so much. You cannot imagine. So I had shared, and now it's gone again. And I was going to, it's going to happen again. Don't worry, the cavalry will come running in just like it did last time. But Ben, is there any other parting words that you or Courtney or Jeff want to share?
Just quickly, thank you all. You don't know how much we appreciate you all and the districts, and you make our work so much fun. And it's, even though we're a little removed from students these days, it still helps us to know that we're serving in a capacity that students receive, direct results at times. And so we thank you guys for all the hard work you're doing. We can't thank you enough for rolling up your sleeves, Angel, to steal and doing the hard work. And so we appreciate you guys. So the long hours that we're keeping to try to, keep these riverbanks up for everybody to keep moving, that's certainly a lot of fun for us, and it's definitely rewarding. So thank you. And as we move forward, if you need us, Ken, just to holler.
Oh gosh, yes. So let's end today where it all really should start, and it does start. And let's talk about the vision of our students. And I think that's the best way, for me to put it. So about a week ago, we sat down and met with just a group of students that we knew we could pull together. They were student senate members, a couple of them former student senate members, and then a couple of other students. And in full disclosure, one of those is my daughter, because I knew that I could tell her, you're going to be part of this, be here. Because she's an incoming junior. She was an underclassman in this whole experience. But we didn't really pick these students, in terms of what we knew they would say. It was quite the opposite. We picked the students because we knew that they would have something to say.
Honesty.
Yes, complete honesty. So what we would like to do, because they are ultimately the benefactors of every single thing that we have done today. But so we're going to end all of this, or begin all of this with the end in sight. So here's the end in sight. I want you to listen to their insights. So I'm going to click on this real quick here, and we're going to watch the video. If you cannot see it, Carol's checking me over here on the other side. Okay, good. It's showing up.
It is.
Great. So let me turn it up, and you guys listen to the insight of these students.
You designed the perfect virtual classroom. What would it be? Go, McKenna, you already had your mouth, go.
So I'm going to go ahead and say this. The question was, and a little bit of that cut off, we asked them the question, if you had to design the perfect virtual classroom, what would it look like? So here you go.
Okay.
So are we creating the perfect virtual classroom for ourselves or for our peers? Because everyone learns.
Yes.
Way.
Yes.
Yes to all of it?
All of the above.
Okay. Well, I would make sure that there was a syllabus, because most high schools don't do a syllabus, but when you're doing online learning and it's solely online learning and Zoom calls and virtual one-on-one, then your students are going to get misguided and they're not going to have, I guess they're not going to be encouraged to want to learn and want to complete their assignments and projects, and they're not going to want to interact with you unless you keep them on that strict schedule and make sure they do have structure. Because there are a lot of students and a lot of my peers, and even sometimes myself, I haven't been able to stay entirely focused on a certain aspect of our goal that we're trying to reach, like in the classroom.
Okay, thank you. I think so. You're saying right off the bat that there needs to be a syllabus with a schedule.
Yes,
okay.
A lot of children don't have self-discipline, and they don't have the ability to structure their own lives, let alone, teach themselves, basically, because that's what we're learning to do online.
Yes. Okay, thank you. Thank you. Arwen's keeping me on the time thing, so that's one reason why I kind of jumped off that one and went to this one. Bryson, what about you?
I think one thing that's critical to creating this platform would be flexibility. And I think you can see it in like a lot of what we've talked about. We've all kind of had the same experiences, that we've all had some dual credit experience, and McKenna had some experience with a completely online curriculum. But a lot of students kind of got through into this without any experience in that. So I think flexibility is a big factor in what you'd be creating, because some people can, learn online and create their own schedule and do completely fine. But other students may need a little more assistance in creating a timeline for themselves. So I think flexibility and allowing the creation of some sort of platform that can let you work at your own pace, but also allows for like guided learning would also be critical.
Okay.
And then like what Kayla mentioned earlier, the face-to-face communication is also something that I think is great to maintain through Google Meets and Zoom.
Okay, thank you. Caleb?
I feel like for me, it's interaction. So the face-to-face, and then the ability to learn off of what your peers in your class have to say. Because I know for me, in a lot of my dual credit classes that I've taken, in a lot of instances, I've learned more through other students' questions and other students' comments than I have from what the teacher had to say. And I feel like, especially too, if we're talking across the board, K through 12, that interaction for the younger kids is crucial to developing social skills, them knowing how to talk to other kids and how to communicate with their teacher face-to-face, not just their parents sending emails back and forth.
Arwen, what would you say?
Like everyone else has been saying, communication is really important. I learn best with one-on-one interaction with a teacher or whoever, and even other students, because as long as I can have somewhat of a support system, then I think that things would definitely work out.
Okay, so let's talk a little bit about that then. You guys, one thing I've noticed at the end of this conversation that we've come down to is that you still need that interaction, okay? That you really need that time to network and collaborate. That was one thing that you spoke about really eloquently, Caleb. But then Arwen just said something that made me think something, and that is teacher time. So if your teacher was able to, especially, and I really love the point that you made also, Bryson, about flexibility. and McKenna talked about that almost immediately when we started this meeting, was that she liked the flexibility, being able to do the work when she was able to do the work, and everything. We needed that flexibility. And then I like the idea that you bring up about flexibility in terms of not only doing the work when you can, but also being able to access the teacher.
So it's really weird to sit and watch yourself. I don't like it. I'm not comfortable. There were probably times that you guys saw me not liking it. So anyway, so I think that it's a really important point that we have, that our kids have made here, and I think when you think about what they've said, most importantly, in terms of, you heard relationships, and I would love it just for a second, Courtney, Ben, anyone, Shauna, I want to open it up to the panel. Anyone that wants to come on really quickly, because we have 3 minutes left there. I would love for you guys to come on and talk a little bit about the things that you heard, because I heard relationships, I heard interaction, I heard instructional design, especially now that we can create a virtual syllabus. I just saw that on Twitter about 2 or 3 days ago. This one teacher had created one. So I'm going to contact her and say, please come, let's do a quick face-to-face kind of thing, Zoom, so we can share this with our teachers. And also I heard evidence of learning. They don't mind that we want to see what they can do. So Courtney, I see you. So that means you want to talk a little bit. So go.
I just think it's great that you all asked the question, because they want to be heard, and that's what matters, is what they say, and for them to share really openly. I actually wrote down a note, because when I heard that they want the ability to learn from their peers, that they want that interaction, an educational interaction. I think sometimes we think they just want to go, I don't know. I don't have Snapchat. I don't have Facebook. So I don't know what that means for me and my coolness level. But we think that that's the only way they want to communicate. So I thought it was really powerful for them to say, we want to communicate with each other because we learn from each other's questions. That was awesome.
Yes.
I think, just real quick, Kim, I think it's a testament to how we're being more intentional right now about the things that truly matter than maybe we've been in a long time. And I think that will be the piece. I think that will be the lasting piece that drives us through this shift from crisis to never going back to the same. And I think that will be the key, is being intentional and listening to our students. And it's going to drive this change. If nothing else does, as everything, feels broken or looks different, we can focus on that one thing, and that will push us through. I promise. So glad that you asked those kids those questions. That's great. Thank you.
And what you saw was just an excerpt from our discussion with the kids. It's unbelievable how much you learn by just listening to them. And, you think they don't want organization structure, but they do. You think they don't want to talk to each other, but they do. And they will tell you they think about their peers, just like McKenna saying they all learn differently. We have a world of very smart kids.
Yeah. So let's listen to them.
Yeah.
We've got a chance.
Yeah.
I think that's incredibly important. So the big thing that and I won't take time to go into this because we're just moments away. We want to make sure that you guys, here's the link. And again, I saw earlier that Jennifer mentioned that these PowerPoints will be shared. So you guys will be able to go into these PowerPoints and get into those. So this link is right here. And this is going to be the link to the one specifically that is designed there. You'll be able to go past this one into our designing learning experiences. And that is going to be populated by our teachers. And most important, because they're going to share with each other, they're going to collaborate, they're going to network. Obviously, some of the first folks you're going to see on there are the superstars you saw today. Those are going to be some of the first ones to share some of their learning and everything. But that is going to be populated, very quickly. And the last thing I want to show you guys, I have 3 articles. I talked about at the beginning that we needed to start reflecting and acknowledging and then moving on. So these are 3 articles. All of them come from Edutopia.
Jennifer Carroll shared 2 or 3 of these. She may have shared all of them, but I really thought the last one about the frequently asked questions and terms, and that is actually answered by students and teachers. And I found that one to be incredibly enlightening, as I was going through and reading that. So I wanted to share those articles with you. That is some of my own professional learning that I've been looking at in terms of thinking about remote teaching.